we're going to move on and basically finish up this podcast talking about every other team that we have yet to mention for this college football playoff race. And before we get into the other teams and who can win out the rest of the way, Brandon, I got a question for you. And I was thinking about this earlier, and I want to get your thoughts on it. After seeing a week like we had last week, are you a guy who says 4 playoff teams is perfect? Or do we need to reopen a discussion to say, like what happened last week is exactly why we need 8 playoff teams in college football?
I think that I'm definitely open to expansion. I have been. I have been since it started. Since we got rid of the BCS and now we're going to a 4-team playoff system. Mm-hmm. I think from the beginning I wanted to see some more teams, and even if we could do something in the middle where we go 6. I mean, everyone said 4 teams or 8 teams. Can we go 6? Can we go 6 teams?
Well, the thing with the 6 is number 1 and number 2 would then get a bye. That's what would need to happen.
I mean, does it matter? I mean, seriously, does it matter? Because I think that if they would be willing to expand and they say we'll give you 6, and the top 2 teams have a bye, are you going to go? No, we don't want that. We'll just leave it at 4. I think that you would want to add. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if it's something to add, but then of course I think you'd probably be getting away from what you have right now. It would be something completely different, and then if you expanded to 8, you would change it again to something not completely different, but back to where it was at 4, but you just have 8 teams. So that can get confusing, but I think that there needs to be some expansion with it, because look at the amount of good teams we've got, and it's so hard to get 4 teams in there and not discount a good team that still deserves to be there. I mean, it's really difficult. It's very difficult, and I don't want every time you're going to see a team get left out,
snubbed.
Get snubbed. I almost said snagged, but I knew that wasn't right, so I didn't say it. You're going to see a team get left out. You always do. Mm-hmm. You see it at award ceremonies. Oh, well,
college basketball all the time.
Well, this movie won. Well, this movie was really freaking good too. Or
March Madness.
A number of times with March Madness. So why didn't this team get in? They should have totally gotten in.
Just wait until we get to blind resume time, Brandon.
I mean, you're never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. You're never going to get in every good team. But I think that if you allow for a system where you can try and fit in as many good teams as possible, then at least you can almost assure that you're going to have representation from all of the Power 5 conferences. And some people would say, no, absolutely not. That's like giving them a participation award just because they're a Power 5. And people would argue they're not that good. We shouldn't give it to them. But you're going to give it to them because you want to be able to represent all of the conferences. That's what would end up happening at some point. But I think that right now, the system is okay. Mm-hmm. But I do think that after 2 years of this, and then seeing exactly what the committee comes out with this year, then I think it kind of takes a little bit off the committee.
Well, and like I said, I was thinking about this today because I was thinking about the same thing you said. Man, do we've got a lot of teams. Like, just looking at the playoff picture right now, Alabama, Ohio State, Louisville, Michigan, Clemson, Wisconsin, Washington, Oklahoma, Penn State. That's 9 teams that everyone would say, yeah, those are playoff teams. I'd be happy if those teams were in the playoffs. Here's the thing, though, that I started to think about and why I am kind of, at the moment, against going to 8 teams after what we saw last week. We wouldn't have this drama. We would not have this drama. We would not have this discussion because you look outside of 8. West Virginia, is anyone fighting for them to get into a playoff? Like, the teams that we would be talking about to get into that 8 spot, West Virginia, Utah, Colorado, Oklahoma State, Western Michigan. And it would become more of a conversation of we're talking more about 2 lost teams than we are talking about 1 lost teams and the teams at the top. I think it might get a little bit too diluted. I think last week added a little bit of fire to this 4 playoff system. And right now, like, would I be opposed to a 6? Probably not, because it's less than 8 and you're not diluting it. I just feel like right now it's one of those things where supply and demand. We've got 4 spots, yet we could talk about 9 teams that could possibly get into those 4 spots. I love that. Maybe it's because we do what we do and we sit here and we podcast and we talk about these teams and we look at the storylines. I think those storylines wouldn't be as impactful if we had 8 teams. It would more be like, well, here's our playoff. What do you think, Brandon? Oh, that's a pretty good playoff, Ricky. What do you think? I think it's good. Instead of, oh, but Michigan, this is what they're doing. They got this to play and that to play. It wouldn't be the same. The only thing it would open up, and this is what I think is a positive, it might open up shots. An 8-team playoff might open up shots for like an undefeated Western Michigan team to maybe get in with that 8th spot. Maybe. That's what it could do. Would it? Probably not. We'd probably pick the Power 5 teams. But that's a team I kind of want to mention in this. Western Michigan. We don't give them any love. They play in the MAC. Who the fuck cares? But this is a team that I'll ask you, Brandon, before we get to everyone else. An undefeated, let's say they do go undefeated, win the MAC. How high do you see this Bronco team being rated in the college football playoff at the end of the year?
I could probably see them around, if they go on, they win them all, around 13.
So they don't even crack the top 10?
No.
You don't think at all?
No, come on.
They don't crack the top 10 at all?
Where are they at right now?
They are right now, if I'm looking at the playoff standings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They're 14 on the playoff picture that ESPN has.
Yeah, they're probably around 13 or 12.
And it all has to do with what conference they play in. But they're a team where I'm like, man, I would love to be able to say, woo, undefeated Western Michigan, put them in the playoff. But let's look at the real teams. I mean, we talked about Michigan, talked about Penn State, the Big 10, the Big 12. I'll let you answer first, like I usually let you do, because I'm so kind and grateful.
And grateful. I don't know if that word works here, but sure.
I'm going to say besides Alabama, because I think that's the easy answer to this question, who has the best shot of finishing undefeated from this point on in the college football season, regular season-wise, not college football playoff? From now to conference championship week, who has the best chance to finish out undefeated?
Well, out of which teams? Out of teams right now in the playoff, or
any
out
team.
of teams in the top 6?
You could say a Clemson. You could say let's go with the teams that are in the playoff picture that we think will be in to win out the rest of the season. Who's got the best shot? Who do you see like, man, that's my team that's gonna win out and has a great shot at the playoff because of it?
Well, I'm not sure.
I'm going to go with Louisville. I'll throw that out.
I was going to say them, but I don't think so. I think Houston will give them a scare.
Is it the same Houston team that we've seen? I think Houston's fallen off a bit.
Houston could play like Virginia, and that could give Louisville some trouble. Because Virginia gave Louisville some trouble.
Wake Forest was up 12 to whatever, or 12 to nothing.
And lost 44 to 12.
Yeah.
But I was totally going to say Louisville, but I can't. I can't say them. I cannot say them because I do not think that that's true. I think that they will be tested by. I think they will definitely be tested by Houston. Yeah. Okay. So here's the team. Here's the team that I'm going to go with.
Is this the for realsy one?
Since you took away my Alabama.
Sorry.
Sean, you listening? I'm going to go with the Washington Huskies.
Really?
I'm going to go with the Washington Huskies. I am.
You know, funny thing about Washington this week?
What's funny?
Every week, me, you, Mark, and Sean submit our top 25. Guess who had Washington ranked the highest?
Who?
You.
Did I?
You had Washington ranked, and I told Sean this, and he's like, really? Swanee had him ranked the highest? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you had him ranked the lowest, Sean. So he was lower on his team than you, somebody who, you and Sean, going back and forth in our text messages to each other about this Washington team, and then you end up being higher on them than he was.
Yeah, where did I throw him? At 5?
Yeah, you had him at 5, and then Sean had him at 7, along with myself. I can't remember where Mark had him, but I know that you had him the highest. But that Washington pick isn't that bold of a pick. I mean, the big game for them, well, they've got 2 left. They've got the Washington State game, which is going to be huge. They'll get past Arizona State, let's be honest.
I'd like to think so.
But the Washington State game's huge because it's a ranked team and it's on the road. And then they got to play the Pac-12 title game again, which at this point, we don't really know who's that is going to be against, because right now, if you look at the standings, Colorado stands large and in charge, but who's creeping around there right behind them with 2 losses? Utah and USC. So it could end up being a thing, and Colorado's got to play Washington State and Utah. So let's be honest. It's probably going to be either USC or Utah that meets Washington again. They could lose in that one. That's the one they could lose. I take it back. It kind of is a bold pick to say they'll win out, because they're going to have 2 really good games to play late in that season.
Well, to be honest with you, I could not find a team. There wasn't a team that I was looking at where I was going, yeah, this is going to be real simple for you. And then when you had to count the conference tournament, or the conference tournament, the conference championship game. Excuse me, I'm thinking basketball, but that there weren't any team. I wanted to take Louisville. But I see the next game up
is Houston.
Is the Houston Cougars, and if we get the Houston Cougar team that we saw at the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, as opposed to the one that we're seeing right now, Louisville could be in some real trouble.
Well, it's kind of pick your poison, because I'm going to go down the list. Besides Alabama, Ohio State, yeah, they get Michigan. Then if they win, they probably get Wisconsin. 2 tough teams. Louisville, like you said, they get Houston, then they get Kentucky. Michigan, same thing as Ohio State. You get Ohio State, then you possibly get Wisconsin. Oh, and by the way, they have Indiana, a team that we said not to overlook. Clemson, yeah, you've got a pretty simple regular season schedule, but then you're probably playing either North Carolina or Virginia Tech in that ACC title game. That's where your kind of big question comes. Wisconsin, you got to pick your poison with Penn State, Michigan, or Ohio State in that Big Ten title game. Washington, like we said, they have the 2 tough games in Washington State and probably Utah and USC to end the season. And then Oklahoma, you got to play West Virginia and Oklahoma State. So to me, no one is safe. No one is safe. But if I'm going to put my money on a team to win out, I'm going with Louisville, only because they don't have to play a title game. They don't have to play a conference title game. And I know you're probably sitting there going, well, Ricky, that kind of hurts them. But does it? If they can win out, Clemson loses in that ACC title game, Louisville could be sitting there on the right side saying, hey, I know that we didn't win the ACC title, but we're better than those that Yuts who won in either Virginia Tech or North Carolina, because neither of those teams are going to be able to get ranked high enough to overseed Louisville. That's why I would pick Louisville. The Big Ten, I don't think you can pick any of those because they're going to beat each other up. And by beat each other up, I mean Michigan and Ohio State, and then whoever gets to play Wisconsin in that title game. This is going to be a good finish. This is going to be a great finish to the rest of the season here in college football.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be a really fun ride.
And before we wrap everything up, this is where we turn it over to Swanee for Swanee's final thoughts.
Well, thanks, Ricky. And, I wanted to keep it football related, but take it to the NFL on this one. So we just find out today that the Bears, Alshon Jeffrey, suspended 4 games for PEDs. And this is something that I think is absolutely terrible. I think this is absolutely terrible. I don't think that Alshon Jeffrey actually is using PEDs. Reason being, aren't PEDs supposed to make you better? There is nothing good about Alshon Jeffrey or the Chicago stinking Bears. I don't think he's using any PEDs. The test is wrong because he's supposed to be good. He's awful. The Bears, awful. Sorry, I'm sure you've already or will hear something from Mike Rankin about this as well, but the Chicago Bears are just really pathetic. It has been sad watching the Chicago Bears attempt to play football. They throw a 50-yard Hail Mary to end the half, and somehow Meredith makes the catch for a touchdown. They didn't score again. The Chicago Bears don't even deserve to have the second pick in the draft next year because they'll squander it away on probably a lousy holder or a kicker, which I'm sure we need both. But the Chicago Bears need to get it turned around. This is a franchise that has been so great in the past, that has really prided itself on great defense, great defensive guys. And unfortunately, we're not seeing anything defensively. We're not seeing anything offensively. And the good defensive guys that we have are hurt or are faking hurt because they hate it so much. And that's that.
You know who had the best tweet about the suspension? Our own Mark Weber. Here's what he said. I don't know if you saw it, Brian. He said, I hear Alshon Jeffrey is really upset over this suspension. He was hoping it'd be for the remainder of the season. And that was Mark's thoughts on the suspension. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in for another week of the Primetime Podcast. Let us know down below what you think about anything we talked about today, and especially Swanee's final thoughts. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, thank you for listening. Hit that follow button. If you're on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. And also, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. That's where you can support the podcast more and other than hitting that like and subscribe button and that follow button. Thank you guys one last time. I'm going to do it over and over and over. Thank you guys for listening to this podcast. And as always, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter @MostValuablePod for more great podcasts.